you, Wale. So for social media accessibility, what we are talking about is the content that you're putting on your social media channels. That includes Facebook, through Hootsuite, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, all of those platforms. And when you're posting an image on your social media and a GIF as well, there are two different kinds of image description that you're thinking about here. One is alt text. It's a short description on your image that is coded to be read out loud by a screen reader. This description is usually hidden, or if your internet is really slow and your image is not loading, you can read out the alt text when that image doesn't load. And an image description, on the other hand, is a longer description next to the image. Sometimes you see it under, or sometimes you see it on the side. And that gives the audience a little bit more information on the purpose of the image, the copyright, the links, why are you posting it. So next slide, I will have an example of what the difference between alt text and image description. So the title slide is image description. Here is a screenshot of Tom Morello, who is the guitarist in Rage Against the Machine. And he took a screenshot of a Twitter user who said, "Still ashamed of myself for going to a Rage Against the Machine concert 10 years ago." So if I were Tom Morello, the alt text for that screenshot would be the name of the Twitter person, which is at SWB8400. Twitter user wrote, "Still ashamed of myself for going to a Rage Against the Machine concert 10 years ago." So that alt text is to let a person who uses a screen reader or a slow internet user, a slow internet browser downloading the image, let them know what that image is about. And then an image description is what I'm using right now to describe this instance, to give you more information on why this tweet is the tweet that I picked. So a tweet from Tom Morello, Rage Against the Machine guitarist, went viral after he quoted a random Twitter user who said that they were ashamed for attending a Rage concert. So the alt text is for your user to know what is going on and why you're using that. And the image description is to give more information to the context of why you're using that image now. So the slide title is how to describe an image. There are a lot of information that we want to encompass in an image, so we don't have to write a lot of words. It's important to give your audience an overview of why you use that image. So here on this slide, I have an image of a really cute puppy being stood up on someone's lap, and to make it look like they are playing the piano, and the puppy is looking straight into the camera with puppy eyes. So for an alt text here, you can start broad and get more details. So you can say the puppy is being photographed to look like it's playing the piano. And then in your image description, and also you can include some of this in the alt text as well, ask yourself the following questions. Where was this photo taken? When was this taken? Who is in it? What are they doing? Most importantly, why? Why are you posting this image? And what is the image that you are conveying? If you are if you're trying to get people to adopt the puppy, for example, so here is the information that you would like to include in your image description, the name of the dog, the type of the dog, or a link to where people can adopt the dog. If you are just using this image because you think it's cute and you can keep your audience attention, that's something that you can include that as well. And if it's related to what you're doing, you can put in a stat for why puppies playing the piano is the rage on Twitter or Facebook. The next slide is alt text for graphics. We use a lot of social media to put out flyers, graphics, infographics, and imagery to grab the user's attention. But when we are not putting an alt text for those graphics, for people who are using screen readers, they are not getting that information at all. So if you are tweeting, join our conference, it's going to be great. And then you post an image of the conference event, and in there's the venue, the date, the time, how people can register, but you don't have an alt text for that. It's impossible for people who are using screen readers to attend your event or have any idea of how to get there. So when you're posting a graphic, an infographic, event flyer, anything with imagery, it's important to start with the text, including the title, description, and details that are in the graphic itself. And for graphs and infographics and other data, it's important to start broad with an explanation of why you are posting that infographic and data, and include some of the significant data or trends that people would need to know about. So for example, on this slide, there is an infographic of how the UK government spent money in 2016. The way that I would write that alt text is how the UK government spent money in 2016 infographic. The design includes the flag and is in the shape of the Queen's head. The largest amount of money spent in 2016 from the UK government are for social protection, education, and health. And if you want to, and I think this is an important piece of data as well, to put in the amount of money listed in the data set. What you're trying to do is to allow your users to walk away with the most significant data and trends that they should know about from that infographic. And if there is more information on that infographic, make sure that you link to it in your tweet or subsequent tweet so people can click and learn more about the data set. So the next slide is support for alt text. If you are using Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Hootsuite, LinkedIn, all of those platforms support alt text. So the first graphic here is of Facebook. When you are on Facebook, what you can do is post a graphic and click on that graphic. There will be a box of photo detail that comes up. In there is an ask for caption and alternative text. You can choose to put a caption if you would like. That's your image description. And the alternative text is your alt text. After you're done with that, click save, and that image now has an image description. For Twitter, you can do the same. When you post a graphic and a GIF, you can now post a description and alt text for that GIF and that image. Facebook and Instagram are currently not supporting alt text for GIFs. So if you do post a GIF, which is a moving image that is about 5 to 10 seconds long and it's looped, you should put an image description and alt text in your posting language or as a comment. And then for Instagram, once you post an image, make sure that before you click on post it, you go to advanced setting and then click on write alt text, and there you can compose your alt text. And then once you post it, it's there, it's available for people with screen readers. For all of these platforms, you can quickly Google search the step-by-step guides on how to post alt text on your images. The next slide is creating social media graphics. There are two graphics here that I want to discuss a little bit about, and what we are looking for is high color contrast, accessible font, language, and content. So for the first graphic, it's from Green YC, and in the graphic, it asks, have you completed the census? Help NYC get the funding and power to keep our air clean, keep our water drinkable, keep our planet livable. And then there's two logos there for the NYC Mayor's Office and Census 2020. On this graphic, the color contrast is very high, so that makes sure that people with low vision and color blindness can read your graphic very quickly, and especially on a phone. The fonts are accessible because they are using sans serif fonts, and all of the fonts are in large sizes. Language. This is written in plain language, and it's easy for people to understand. The content is broken down to make sure that you can see the header first. So that's the large font. Have you completed the census? And then the smaller fonts tells you about why getting funding is very important to sustainability issues. The next one is a graphic that said Oatly Department of Distraction Services. If you were to see this graphic by itself, it might not give you the context you need in order to understand what this is about. So it's not a standalone graphic. The color contrast here is very low. It's white text against a person wearing Oatly or Oats t-shirts as pants and Oats t-shirts as shirts and covering their face. But the contrast is so low because the text, the color of the text and the color of the background pretty much blend in together. The font is not accessible. This is in all caps and underlined, making it very hard for people with reading disabilities or low vision or color blindness to be able to read this text and decipher what it's saying. The language is very insider language. The Department of Distraction Services is something that you would need to know the brand a little bit more in order to know what they're talking about. And that's not always a bad thing, but when you are trying to get new customers or users, it's important to write in a language that a lot of people can understand. And with social media, when it's getting shared without context, it's important to give people a little bit of context on who you are, what you are, why you're posting this. And then the content. The content itself, from the image and the graphic and the headers, it's hard to get immediately what the context is about. So this is all of the things that you should think about when you're creating your content. The next slide is visual accessibility. What we talked about before is color contrast and usage and font accessibility. There is a tool called WebAIM Color Contrast Checker. You can go there, and before you design anything, you can check the background color and the foreground color to make sure that it passes the color contrast level, to make sure that people with low vision can distinguish between the two colors. And then for font accessibility, use a sans serif font, and the minimum size for the font is 50 points on Adobe programs and 30 points on Canva. So that's specifically for designers. And why is that important? When you're looking at a phone, it is a much smaller surface than when you're looking at your computer. So it's important to make your fonts larger so people can just quickly scroll through their feed and still know what you are talking about without having to stop and squint